So, I'm showing my dog because I prefer to show my dog, but the issue is very serious. It's the Holocaust. So I just saw a video. I don't want to mention the person, but I did report this person who actually said that Donald Trump is the same as the Nazis in Germany because the Nazis in Germany didn't intend on killing 6 million Jews, but they were focusing on Germany being the most important country. And that's what Trump is doing because he's focusing on America being first. That is so distorted. So just because I want to be very clear, I Googled, even though I know the facts, I Googled them again. And if you don't believe me, Google it yourself. Unless you believe in some conspiracy theory of Google. So Hitler did in fact absolutely declare that he was going to fight the enemy of Germany, the Jews. So he absolutely targeted the Jewish people, which is actually very similar to what happened to the Jews under the Joe Biden-Harris administration, when students were allowed to declare the Jews as a threat, and they openly threatened Jewish students on universities, campuses throughout the USA, especially in Ivy League universities sponsored by Qatar, who sponsors Hamas and other jihadist terror groups. So how dare anyone compare Donald Trump to Nazi Germany when Donald Trump is putting a stop to Jewish students being targeted, who reacts immediately when two members of the Israeli embassy are gunned down by a person with, no surprise to me, but maybe to this woman, with a person who's openly communist leftist. He's not right-wing, he's a leftist. So you can compare Nazi Germany to US 2025 because it's very clear the Black Lives Movement and the extreme left are acting in an anti-Semitic, racist way and are in fact openly threatening Jewish people and attacking them. So the danger to Jewish people and other marginalized groups is no longer from the right political part of the spectrum, but the left part of the spectrum. Always was, by the way. If you think about why US was going into war again and again against communism, is because communism, in fact, has caused the murder of millions of people. And if you compare Stalin to Hitler, you'll find that they're very similar in the number of people they killed. Stalin also targeted Jews. And communist Russia also targeted Jewish people. And so the extreme left and the extreme right are both threats. And if you think that Donald Trump is a threat to marginalized groups, you have to think a little bit less black and white and think a little bit deeper, because he is putting a stop to, he is fighting anti-Semitism in a way Joe Biden-Harris administration never did. He's also putting a stop to domestic terror threats by illegal immigrants with criminal backgrounds who have murdered children, women, girls, and this is a fact. It's not something that people made up. And if you think that Donald Trump is exaggerating the threat to Americans by illegal immigrants, then just look at the statistics. I mean, the facts speak for themselves. The reason Donald Trump came to power is not because people are pro-right, but it's because the Democrats have done a lousy job in giving Americans a sense of security, and the foreign policy was disastrous because Israel is the strongest ally of America in the Middle East. And if you think otherwise, You should check your facts and see if you think, who do you think has shared values to America? Is it jihadist Islamic extremist countries of the Middle East, or is it Israel, which is the only democracy in the Middle East? And whatever you think about Israel, you can also research and do it well. We're still the only Jewish country, a tiny, tiny Jewish country with half of the population of Jews in the world. So anyone comparing Donald Trump to Hitler is missing not just a lot of brain cells, not just a lot of facts, is misinforming, absolutely clearly misinforming people, demonizing Trump, should be sued for not only demonizing Donald Trump, but for lying about the Holocaust, lying about Hitler, lying about historical facts. I don't care if this person claims to have a degree in history. I don't care how many degrees in history she has and if she focused on World War II. As we know from Harvard University, at least, there are professors there that just give a completely false narrative of Israel, completely false narrative with absolute lies, things that are just not true. And they are professors of history. So I wouldn't be surprised if the professors of history who teach about World War II have a hidden agenda to just completely lie about the Holocaust. So it's not enough to learn about World War II and the Holocaust. You should check your facts. And what you should do as a person with a curious mind, an intellectual, a person who claims to seek higher education, is to compare your sources. Don't just go from one source, but compare different sources. And of course, make sure the sources are reliable. So for instance, I wouldn't expect a person who has extreme communist, jihadist, Islamic ideology to give a reliable agenda, a reliable narrative of what happened in 1948, because they are clearly biased. And if you want to know what really happened in 1948, compare different sources of information and don't quote Hamas terrorist organization for any reliable facts, because terror groups do not offer reliable facts. And if you want to have a reliable source of facts, you should double check and you should figure out who is the person teaching you, what is their agenda. And when you want to demonize Donald Trump, first of all, you should think about not comparing anyone to Adolf Hitler. Because comparing anyone to Hitler, it should be Stalin maybe, but definitely not Donald Trump, who is reacting to anti-Semitic attacks and murders of Jewish people in America, while the former administration ignored openly racist attacks on Jewish students. And if you think that the biggest problem America has is transgender people, think what percent of transgender people there are in America, and what influence they have in America. What did they contribute to American history, culture, politics? I'm sure they did, but compared to, let's say, other minority groups like African Americans or Jewish people, and think what is a bigger problem? Attacks on, let's say, Jewish people, African Americans, etc., or attacks on transgender, which I'm not sure it's actually an attack on transgender, or is it trying to protect women being defined as women and not being defined as egg carriers, or, you know? I think there's a big difference in attacking transgenders and in protecting women's rights and women's right to be called a woman and not have that be in question, and women's right to compete with women in sports and not with biological males and so forth, and women's right to be in safe spaces for women. And so that is my side of that. And I think we have to really stop people claiming that because they have a history degree or they studied World War II that they know the facts. Hitler openly declared the Jews as enemies. He did not say Germany comes first. That was not his manifesto in the famous book Mein Kampf, that actually was found in Gaza and was taught in Gaza to children. And so when you wonder why children dance around coffins of murdered Jewish babies, you can connect the dots to the way they were taught in UN-sponsored schools, the manifesto of Adolf Hitler, which is not about Germany being great, but it's about the Jews being the enemy. And it's complete contradiction to how in Israel Jews and Arabs live side by side, which is the only place in the Middle East where Jews and Arabs live together and have full rights as citizens. And Gaza is different. It's under the control of Hamas. It's not part of Israel. And the reason why Israeli army is there is because they invaded Israel in October 7th and threatened Israelis, Arabs and Jews, by the way. They murdered also Arabs. They kidnapped and are still holding hostage. They're still holding Israeli hostages, and they're still threatening our security. We're under almost daily rocket attack from Yemen and other terror groups. We have almost every week we have terror attacks where people are murdered. Most recently, a pregnant woman was brutally murdered on her way to give birth, and so forth. And there's no regard to human life. There's no attempts to protect Palestinian children in Gaza. There is no one, not one Arab country in the Middle East willing to take Palestinian children, including the Queen of Jordan, who is Palestinian. They don't do any efforts, even though there's tunnels, to put children in bomb shelters, even though they have underground tunnels, because they're keeping hostages there. And they're planning to kidnap more people in the future if the Israeli army doesn't intervene. So this is our side of the facts. So Google, be free to Google, but choose reliable sources.